So Nathan Maxwell, I'm with Communication Concepts. We go by CCI team. That's really kind of less of a mouthful than the actual official business name. And so we do technology support. That's, it's just what we do. We're going to come in and we're going to fix computer problems. So, what really does that mean? Let's just kind of get that out of the way in the beginning. It's networking. It's making your computers talk to each other. You got a printer there, you got one or two devices that can print to it. That's great. You got two more that you just kind of can't. Yeah, we're going to figure out how to, in theory, get those printing. You have Wi-Fi issues. We're going to talk about Wi-Fi here in a few minutes. And Wi-Fi is just one of those constant pain points that everybody seems to experience. Firewalls, computers, even cybersecurity. One of the things that those of us that are smaller vendors and service providers are seeing is more often is when we go after the big contract. We're having that big contract say, hey, we'd like to work with you, but here's a risk assessment. Fill out this questionnaire and show us that your cybersecurity game is good. And, we can help with that. So that's the kind of stuff that we do. I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I almost said I'm a wife. That's anyways. So I'm a dad and husband, 6 kids, beautiful wife. So in theory, that picture is kind of there on the screen. And let's go on. There we go. All right. So I can't really do a presentation without talking just a little bit about cybersecurity because it is such a big deal still. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but look, your password game needs to be top notch. Passwords are falling. Pick your analogy. They're falling like a 12-month-old trying to walk. They're dropping like a business in Johnson County during rolling blackouts. Like, you can't trust a password. Notice the example here. I don't know how well that comes through, but that's a Cheeto there functioning as a lock. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, it doesn't even look right. So you need to use a password vault. 1Password and LastPass are 2 really good products. I'm not going to get into the weeds on how they work and how you use them. Happy to have an offline conversation on that. But then also you need to multi-factor everything. Multi-factoring means that you're going to tie your phone into the login process, or I got a little hardware device right here. This is called a YubiKey. It's a little hardware device. I'll go to log into something and I'll have to plug it into my computer and I'll go, oh, wow, look, the device is there. Okay. You can log in. And a lot of us are used to that now. You go to log into your bank and your bank's going to send you a text or it's going to push something to your phone. Bank, hotel, airlines, like everything is trying to reach out and touch your phone. And that's a really, really good thing. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you just multi-factor everything. It is the stopgap that protects you from that password hack. You're going to have bad password hygiene because you create bad passwords. Your password manager will help with that. Just stuff's going to happen. Okay. So we'll move on from it. It's all stuff you've heard before. It's the reason we're still talking. It's like, look, we still have public service announcements to wear your seatbelt. Right? Like that, if we're not down that road all the way yet and having like complete compliance with seatbelts, we're going to be talking about passwords and password hygiene for a really long time. So there's your little public service announcement. Now, because I like talking about technology and because all of you are a captive audience right now, we're going to talk about Wi-Fi. And this is the single greatest pain point that I have when I walk into a business. And I get asked about this. I get pulled aside walking down the hall. So we're just going to do a little 3.5, 4 minutes of Wi-Fi education to just kind of help you kind of understand this technology that we're all really, really dependent on. This on the screen is a donut and it represents the Wi-Fi signal propagation of your router. Okay, the thing to keep in mind with this is that it is not a perfect ball. It's really a donut. So if we put our Wi-Fi routers at the corner of our house, we're cutting that pie in such a way that we're really only using about 25% of that signal capability. You move that Wi-Fi router into the center of your house, you get a lot more benefit out of it. That signal propagates east-west or left-right much better than it propagates north-south or up and down. And that's a really important part. You got a 3-story house, your router's in the corner of the basement. You're not getting good signal upstairs. It's just the way it works. Trying to push your Wi-Fi signal is kind of like trying to herd cats. Like it kind of sort of might work for a little while, but ultimately it's just not a viable option. So a few things with Wi-Fi is, first of all, keep in mind it's subject to interference. One little fun trivia fact: the new Wi-Fi spectrum that everything's moving into is the 5 gigahertz spectrum. It's very heavily regulated, very closely watched, because the other things that are in this spectrum are like aircraft radar used for navigation and things like that. So the 5 gigahertz stuff is really closely watched from an FCC standpoint, because somebody decided somewhere, like airplanes getting from point A to point B is kind of important. So anyways, I was upstairs in my living room Sunday evening. I was FaceTiming with my grandma, and one of my kids was cold, was ready to go to bed. And she walked in and she put a hot pack, a rice pack basically in the microwave to warm it up. FaceTime was gone. Like it was just locked up instantly. What happened? The microwave in the kitchen was just spewing RF, or radio frequency interference. FaceTime was done. Absolutely done. How did I fix it? I flipped over, I shut my phone off Wi-Fi, so I was just using a cell signal, and I was back on and going. There are things in your house that will mess with your Wi-Fi. First of all, the signal only goes so far. We'll talk here in just a second about some easy, not so easy ways to fix that. But then I've seen clothes dryers. I was at I forget the difference, optometrist versus optician versus ophthalmologist. I think it was an optometrist office doing some consulting, and they go, Wi-Fi is great in our lobby, and then it drops. Okay, so Wi-Fi is really strong, then it goes away, then it comes back. That's interference. And I'm like, well, what equipment do we have around here? Well, we have a lens grinding machine on the other side of this wall. And I go, does your Wi-Fi go away when lens grinding happens? They go, oh yeah, now that you mention it, it does. So interference is one of those things that it's very difficult to deal with, because you can't fix it. What am I going to do? Go work on my microwave? Can't really do that. Yeah, I can, I'm like, kids, guys, whoa, somebody turn the microwave off. So Wi-Fi is a tough thing. So let's talk about Wi-Fi troubleshooting, like really, because that's the takeaway. Like, how do we fix this? So when I walk into a business, the first thing that I try to do is I'm going to get the client or the computer closer to that Wi-Fi access point. I want to know, do we have a distance issue? And we won't get off into the weeds, but just realize, just because your computer or your device shows a strong Wi-Fi signal doesn't mean the Wi-Fi signal is strong. Okay, we'll just leave it at that without getting off into the nitty-gritty on that. So if you're having some connection issues, especially if you're using a VPN and the VPN's dropping and coming back, get closer to the access point. And I'm told all the time, well, Nathan, that's in my unfinished basement. It's really cold down there. I'm like, look, bundle up for 2 hours. Let's just rule it out. Get a cable, physically connect your computer to your router. If that eliminates your problems, you have a wireless issue. If it doesn't, you have an internet connection issue. Remember, all of this is layered. If your internet connection has issues, Wi-Fi appears going to have issues because they stack. If your internet's stable and your Wi-Fi has issues, well, let's figure the Wi-Fi stuff out. Boosters are worthless. Yeah, you can go to Micro Center, and yeah, there's some guy with a smile or gal with a smile that will happily try to sell you one. 25, 30 bucks. They're worthless. They do not work very well. It's much better to invest in something called a mesh system. We're not going to get off into the details of it, but mesh have dedicated antennas for what's called the backhaul to get the signal back to another access point. And so Google has a great one. Ireo is another really good one. They're a little bit more expensive, but those are some very tangible ways to do this. And certainly you can run a cable. Yeah, if you've got an office, you're in the office all the time, figure out how to run a cable from your router to that location. Can you get it through the air ducts, through the vents? Do you have an unfinished basement that you can kind of work with? Can you get a cable up in there? My router's right out over here. My office is here. I spent some time, I ran a cable through the wall because I'm like, man, what I do is too important on the internet to risk what my functionality to wireless. When I'm upstairs, it's wireless. I'm not going to run a cable through my sofa and have it sticking up between the cushions there so I can plug in. Like, no, doesn't make any sense. But in my office, it really does make sense. So Wi-Fi is an ongoing pain point. Takeaways are interference will mess with it. Interference looks like strong signal, gone, signal recovery. Usually that's a 30 to 90 second process. You're dealing with interference. That's a tough thing to work around. Other signal issues where it's just kind of like constantly having issues. Let's get closer to the source. Let's figure out, are we having signal problems? And then let's hardwire and let's just see if that fixes it. So hopefully that helps a little bit. We love Wi-Fi, but it's a constant source of pain for many of us.